I titled this podcast "Must Add Running Backs" because I do think this is a topic I want to touch on today. We're going to cover a lot of stuff heading into the fantasy playoffs, maybe some topics not fantasy football, but we discussed last week, Liss, that waiver wire strategy at this point is cut the low upside, depth wide receivers, and just fill in the back with any running back that could have a role in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, just when we said to cut Quentin Johnson, he goes off last week. Those kind of guys. You're breaking up on me. You're a little slow. You're a little blurry and slow on your end. I think it's probably your third world internet in the U.S. I'm not really sure. But anyway, you get rid of the upside receivers, the guys who might do something at some point. Although all of them, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, he had like a decent day, but he had 3 end zone targets that didn't complete that were close, that like he could have had a monster day. So a lot of these guys are finally panning out, giving you a little conundrum now. But basically, the rule is backup running backs, no upside receivers that haven't panned out yet, because even if they do pan out, you're not going to start them this week, most of them, unless you're desperate. And then if you start them next week, there's no guarantee they'll do it 2 weeks in a row. So you're better off just knowing that if, say, Tony Pollard got hurt, that Rico Dowdle would be like an automatic play.
Am I still messed up?
A little bit. Yeah, you're a little bit in slow motion.
Because I'm not seeing that, but, that's here. I'm just doing another quick test. But, all right, so let's go through some of those guys then. Now, like, who are some of those must-add running backs? I mean, we'll start with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. Are you adding those guys? And what do you think the upside is if Christian McCaffrey indeed does miss a game?
I mean, it's pretty good. It's the other. There's two real criteria for the backup running backs. One is that he's the backup, the actual backup, and then you don't know. There's 2 guys that's not as good, and then 2 is that he's like 85% as good as the starter. And I don't think Elijah Mitchell qualifies in that case. Like, I don't think he's that good. So you have Mitchell, who would probably get some running, some stuff on the ground, and Mason would cut into it, but they probably throw more to Debo and hand off to Debo a little bit more. So you should probably, someone should have Mitchell, but like, I think someone like Dowdle,
don't spoil yet. We'll get to those guys.
Yeah,
we're gonna go.
Yeah.
But if I'm ranking them, if 10 is must add and 1 is leave them, 0 is don't even leave them on the waiver wire, whatever, just don't even touch them. Where does Mitchell rank for this must add meter?
I mean, I could be wrong about this, but my gut is like 6.5.
Okay. So if you have room and you add him, but you're not like, there's other players that you want ahead of him.
It's the best situation in the league. It's just that he's got a co-backup who played well before, and he's not McCaffrey. It's not even close.
Yeah, what a bad year for running. By the way, I'm looking at the real feed in live time,
right.
And I think I look fine on there.
Okay, you're a little crackly in my headphones, but
that could be your headphones though.
I don't think so. I mean, it's possible,
yeah.
But
let me see. I'm gonna put the volume on in here.
All right. Anyway, we'll just power through it.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I sound good on the live feed. So
all right.
We'll see. Who knows? It could be mine. All right. Dearness Johnson. We were picking him up last week in case Travis Etienne, he was a little banged up, didn't do anything again. Where do you rank the Jaguars situation? By the way, what a bad week for the Jaguars, right? Trevor Lawrence goes out. Christian Kirk probably gone for the rest of the fantasy season. They're saying Trevor Lawrence could still play this week, but nobody believes that, Chris Liss.
Yeah, and it could be compromised if he did. He could aggravate it. So yeah, that really hurts Dearness Johnson, right? Because you're talking about the backup now who's not as good as ETN, and now you're talking about in a compromised situation. That's just not really one that I'm that interested in right now. I mean, I think Dowdle is the one. I mean, that's like a great situation, and he's shown a spark, and he can catch passes. And Pollard is sort of in sort of uncharted territory in terms of workload at this point in the year. It's just, that's the perfect one. Obviously it may not happen, but probably won't happen, but that's the best one.
Yeah. By the way, if I'm crackling up in your headphones, and we won't bore the audience with this any further, just why don't you try unplugging your headphones and plugging them back in, or just Sorry to the podcast audience about this one, but
Yeah, I mean it's the same, but let's keep going. It's all right.
Okay, all right.
It's a little crackly. I can hear you. It's not like you're
Right.
unintelligible.
All right. Zeke was a popular pickup this week with Ramondre. I'm telling you, Ramondre is not going to play again this year. There's no way, right? I mean, he's the only one that had a pulse on that team. They don't really, I can't see a situation where you're going to have him and feel confident to start Ramondre Stevenson, even if you somehow make it to week 16, 17. So Zeke, Thursday Night Football, he's earmarked for 20 touches. This is my chance to win our bet. I need 2 touchdowns.
Oh, man, it's the only bet I'm winning this year, and then I get screwed by Ramondre getting hurt.
Just
I
to
don't know.
refresh.
It's going to be
Let me
it's gonna
refresh
be close.
people.
I think it's going to be close. 2 touchdowns is a lot for that team.
Yeah. So Chris Liss and I have a bet with who will have more total touchdowns, I think it was.
Rushing touchdowns.
Rushing touchdowns, Zeke or Ramondre Stevenson. You're up by 2 right now. And obviously I have about 4 or 5 games to make that up, which, by the way, I think I'm going to get you here.
Well, let's just say that I was correct. I mean, Ramondre, if they're both healthy, Ramondre easily wins this bet.
Well, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why you're not correct, okay? Because if you rewind the tape, part of what I said is that Zeke's superpower is he doesn't get hurt, and he will outlast Ramondre Stevenson. I said something like that. That was not that Zeke was better than Ramondre Stevenson or the more, I gave you that. I said Zeke will play all 17 games.
Right. Well, I mean, if that's true about Zeke, which it has been so far, I mean, it's certainly easy to stay healthy when you're not getting much work. And so Ramondre is the one who got hurt. But, Ramondre hadn't been particularly fragile either to this day. And I will see. I mean, if you win, you win. I pay the bet either way. There was a total nutless monkey in the industry. I'm not going to say his name, but who it was one of these situations where we had a disagreement. We made a bet, and I won the bet per his terms. But he was right in principle about the initial disagreement about the player, that the player was actually good. And then he refused to pay me because he was right in principle.
Well, who was it? Call him out.
No. This dude never gets publicity. Zero. I would never.
You'll tell me offline, though? I promise.
No. So anyway, this dude just decides to refuse to pay me because he was right about the initial argument that led to the bet, which he was right about it. And the thing is, what this guy didn't realize is 2 things. One is it's up to the guy who won the bet to forgive it by saying you were actually right. You don't have to pay it, right? That could happen, right? Like if let's say you and I make a bet and your guy's winning and then he gets out for the year in week 7 and then my guy barely wins at the end of the year, I could say, you don't have to pay me. You were right about this. I just got lucky. But it's not up to you not to pay the bet if we made a bet and that's the terms of the bet. And the second thing is he didn't realize who he was dealing with, right? Like he was dealing with me. And like, I'm not going to let that shit go. You know what I mean? So like, I literally just like froze this dude out completely, like for a year. Like I remember being at a conference and like, we were like sitting there, like, and I acted like the dude didn't exist. And he finally did pay me. He did. It's $50. He did pay me after a year. He paid me after the year. But for me, it was just so galling that you would just voluntarily say, so I was right. So I'm not paying, even though we agreed on the exact terms of the bet. And, it's up to the person who won the bet to say, yeah, don't worry about it. That, I that's not a legit win. But that was like, so even though I'm saying, Ramondre was definitely, the right thing, I'm going to pay you if Zeke wins. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's, you ever see that scene in Bronx Tale when the guy's chasing him for $20 and the mentor says to the young kid, he goes, no, don't chase him. He goes, for $20, you never got to see this guy again. It's like it's great for $50.
Oh no! You understand? One time, I got a mail-in ticket, okay, from my car being in like the pay lane or something like that, or going through a toll or something.
Unjustly.
And well, it was from some place near San Francisco, and I had not been to San Francisco. And basically, I saw the photo of it, and you could see the license plate was my license plate, but the last letter was an E or an F, but the bottom, the foot of the E was cut off. Mine was an E or an F, and the other one was an F or an E. And that, so it came up as an F or an E, the other thing that it actually was in their database in the California DMV, and they sent it to me, but it was a guy with the same plate, except he had the E and I had the F or whatever. And so it was $1, right? I get this bill and I call up and I say, listen, this is not my plate. I was not in San Francisco. That you could see the E and the F thing. It must be somebody with a similar plate, except for that letter. And the guy's like, I was like, so you need to take this off my bill now. And he said, dude, it's $1. I said, it's $1. You think you could steal money from me because it's a small amount? Like you're entitled to take money when I wasn't even there? It's $1. You're telling me I can take money from you? It could be $10. It could be $100. It could be $1,000 next time. The principle of you seizing my money that's mine, that belongs to me, based on something that I wasn't even in the city that this thing happened. No fucking way. You're going to get rid of that thing. And he's like, dude, relax. I'm like, you're going to get this off my thing. This is what is this, the Xerox Corporation that they outsourced this to, that the software was so shitty that it would just send it to anybody with could be 2 different people to send it to the wrong person. You're going to get this off the thing. And it might have taken 20 minutes, but that dude got the $1 off my bill. And I don't care if it's $1. It's the principle of it. Right. You don't make a commitment to somebody based on terms that are clear and agreed upon, and then not deliver on that commitment and then act like, oh, well, I was right, or it's only $1, or whatever bullshit excuse you have. If you owe the money, you pay the money. And if you don't pay the money that you voluntarily owed, you apologize and say why, if there's some hardship or something, and the person say, okay, fine, then you're free for that person for $20. But if you self-righteously think that's cool not to pay what you owe, fuck that. I will go to the ends of the earth and find your ass for 50 fucking cents, and I'll pay you $1 million if I'm wrong and you won the bet. No problem. Even if it was unlucky, even if I was, technically right, but per the terms of the bet, I lost. But it's not about the money. It's about the principle. And that dude did not know who he was dealing with. And, it's not worth it. I will haunt you from beyond the grave. You know what I mean? Like I'll be dead for 100 years and my ghost will haunt your ass. I will not let you go if you do that. To me, that's like, it's not correct. It's not correct. And maybe you can get away with it with some other people. Like they'll just be like, oh, whatever, man, it's worth the 20 that not me, if you make a bet with me, you got to pay if you lose, and I will pay you, and if I lose every cent I have and I can't, I'll wash dishes at your house or something, no problem.
So 2 things here, and yes to all of that, right? And I think anyone listening to this shares that sensibility. In Bronx Tale, what he was referring to. Do you remember the movie Bronx Tale? I
remember when he says, now yous can't leave.
Oh yeah, now yous can't leave. Right.
Yeah,
that was the best part. But the second best part is the reason he says that the guy's chasing him down for $10 or $20 is that he's just like this degenerate, annoying guy that gambles. But he goes, now he will never bother you again. It's not. He said in this specific case, it wasn't worth the degenerate coming around. In your case, right? They're trying to steal from you. I like the whole thing, and I like that you put the energy, because most people just say pay the $1 and just be done with it. So the second
people are free riders. They're free riding off of people like me. Do you realize how those corporations would take from everybody if everyone was like, it's $1, it's $5. I'm just not going to do anything about it. They would just have their hands in your bank account every second. It's people like me and people who sue over things like this, that keep them honest. So all these free riders, this woman, nice woman, friend of Heather's, a prominent lawyer. We go to the sushi place. The waiter's obviously on cocaine or some other drug, and he's taking like 45 minutes to like take our order. He's totally out of it, and she gives the guy a 20% tip. I'm like, fuck no, we're not giving this guy a 20. She's like, oh, what's the big deal? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the big deal is this. If you do that, you are encouraging the worst kind of behavior. Like, there is pride in being a good waiter and being a good service person and doing your job well. And you are basically, throwing those people under the bus and throwing all the customers under the bus. So, to me, it's just like, do not be a free rider off of everybody else who's willing to have an awkward conversation not to stiff, but to give the waiter what they deserve if they don't do anything or they're a terrible waiter.
15%, 10%. It's
give him 0. I mean, literally,
zero's rough. You got to support his cocaine.
The dude
habit.
was like, yeah, I don't care about his cocaine habit. That's his problem. He probably got fired, shortly thereafter anyway, because I'm sure people complain. But it's just, this sort of like, oh, I don't want it to be awkward. I'm just going to go along with this. Like, that is a scourge. You think you're nice. Oh, I'm a nice person. I would never do that. You're not nice. You're not nice. You're just cowardly. You just don't want to have an awkward experience. You just want emotional comfort. You don't want to deal with conflict. That's what it is. You're not nice. You're actually harming the people that actually meet their obligations and actually do a good job as a waiter, and customers who are going to spend their hard-earned income on a meal.
Yeah. The second thing I was going to add to this, and then we can talk again, just move over to some of the running backs that we need to roster, because I think that's an important topic too. But I like that you brought this up. I'm reading. I told you, not reading them. That's a bit. I don't want to seem smart. I'm listening audiobook to the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And they were talking about early Arab culture and even modern Arab culture, how It's not, they didn't give their power over to the state. It was all about honor and trust. And this is what you're talking about, like honor. And if you just even like lie, or if you disrespect someone in Arab culture, it is like, remember like the old Westerns, like if someone called you like a cheater during a card game, they would like shoot the guy, right? Like that's the worst insult you could have. So yes, insulting someone's integrity in old Arab culture, modern Arab culture was like the biggest insult. Whereas like if someone called you a cheat or whatever, I mean, you're not going to do a real man thing and take them out. You know, you're just going to, because we surrender, not you specifically, but we surrender to the power of the state. That's how we grew up, and versus tribal allegiances and that type of culture. It was an interesting part of the book.
Yeah, I'll say two things about that. One is, those same kind of people, were calling you anti-vaxxer, trying to destroy you, trying to like say things, the code words that would ruin you if you disagreed or dissented at all about certain policies. And it was the same thing. It was sort of a character assassination thing. And so, it's the same kind of low life behavior that should be called out. And the people that try to like, tag people's work and stuff like that, like I'm surprised people even tolerate them anymore. Maybe they've forgotten, but I see it as sort of like a low standards. Like say you tolerate somebody that was trying to destroy people's reputations unjustly, and you're, like chit-chatting with them. I find that it's like, oh, this person has low standards for who they interact with. I mean, I don't think anything should happen to them or anything. I think, you can interact with who you want, but I just personally think, oh, that's a low standard person. They don't have high standards of sort of conduct. And then the other thing is someone I know, I don't want to out them.
Out them. Come on. This is
no. This is something else. First of all, some people I don't out because they're such losers that even outing them would give them, would be a reward for them, right? Like they're beneath me, right? If it was somebody prominent that like I had respect for or something, I would probably like go after them more publicly. But it's just like a, small time. But the other thing is, a friend of mine, I'm not outing this person just because it was illegal, had a bookie. And and it was interesting because the bookie, if somebody didn't pay $100, he'd like start people off small. If they didn't pay, then he would just cut them off. And then, if they paid regularly, then he'd let them make bigger bets. And he said that like his whole industry was based on trust, right? I mean, there was no legal recourse for either side. And really like, his boss, his mentor who lifted someone up by his tongue, reportedly, who didn't pay. I don't know if that's true, but that's what he said.
I hope it's true.
Basically, that didn't really pay anymore. That just brings the heat. You don't want to like start, beating up people. So it's just much more efficient to like just cut them off. And but his business was totally based on trust. And how that legal businesses are all based on distrust. I mean, look at the disclaimers and the million fine print and the, and everything in our society with the lawyers and the
look at the Oxy lawsuit going on, right?
Well, I mean, the least trustworthy, corporations like the pharmaceutical, all those people, they've been fined and busted for falsifying data, the worst of the worst. But I'm just saying, even just basic business, there's so much fine print. The contracts are gigantic. It's all based on distrust. And so it's kind of ironic that, the bookies or the old school guys, that was based, you had to have a reputation as a bettor, and you had to have a reputation as a bookie of being fair. And there was like, even though it was a degenerate world, there was integrity in that. You had to have integrity to make a bet and to run that business. And now people have no integrity. They cheat and steal to the maximum ability under the law, and they get their lawyers and they lie and they're weasels. And so anyway, just the idea of I was being a weasel, saying I was right even though I might be wrong. But just rest assured, I would never be such a weasel that I wouldn't pay you exactly per the terms of the bet.
Yeah, I had a bet last year with who would have more fantasy points, Javonte Williams or Zeke Elliott, with somebody, and Javonte got hurt in like week 4 or 5. And, the guy was like, well, my God, he never stuttered about paying, but I said that was the principle of my bet. Zeke's an Iron Man. He's not good anymore, but he will outlast you. He's
right. And just do it on per game if you want per game. You wouldn't have probably done it.
Wouldn't have done it. Zeke's an accumulator. He's an Iron Man. He's the tortoise against the hare, so.
Right. So, I mean, that's fine. Then you made good bets.
All right. Backup running.
You haven't won our bet yet, though. You probably will, but you haven't won it yet.
Like if I could cash out, I would be at plus money right now.
And the Patriots are pretty. I mean, they scored 0 against the Chargers last week. That's not a good defense.
I'm not saying it's I'm not saying that
It's not just Zeke. It's not just the Patriots have to score 2 touchdowns, which is hard enough. It's Zeke himself has to score.
Right.
Them.
So I have 5 games left to get 2 touchdowns. What would
from
be
the starting back?
If you were right, what would you and no Ramondre? So what would you set the odds on for Zeke to score 2 touchdowns in 5
about
games?
even money? That would be the over under, because think about this, right? That would be about 6 1/3 touchdowns for 6 2/3. I forgot it's 17 games. 6 2/3 touchdowns for the season, and so Zeke, the current carcass that he is on the Patriots and this terrible team, would have an over under of about 6 2/3, right? Even as a starter.
Do you want to watch this bet? You want to just wipe it off?
No. I want to play it out. Let's play it out.
All right, I do too.
I want to play it out.
All right. Backup running backs, Antonio Gibson. He might have been dropped, believe it or not, because he was going on a bye. He hadn't really been producing. Now, again, I know Brian Robinson's hurt.
No. Antonio Gibson was hurt a couple of weeks ago, and they were putting in like Chris Rodriguez or whoever it was.
Okay. So do you think Antonio Gibson, again, he may not be available in your league. Again, we're just going to go through all these backup running backs, these handcuffs that, have a viability, and we're just going to rank them. Where would you put Gibson on the, I guess he's the starter now. So where would you rank him?
Pretty high. I mean, he catches passes. He's not a stiff. The offense is weird. It's a weird team. It takes a lot of sacks and turns it over, but they do occasionally put up points. I think that's a good one to have for the playoffs. Okay.
Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, man, he has not been like the picture of health. He's had a good season so far. He's a little dinged up this week, I think. I mean, he's probably going to play, but Gainwell on a good offense, it just doesn't seem like the Eagles love Rashad Penny at all. He's healthy scratch all year. Let's say DeAndre Swift was ruled out. Do you think Gainwell would be the preferred option, or do you think they activate Penny?
Well, I still have Penny on a couple teams. I don't know. I just was like, I've held him this long. Who knows? But I'm not confident if Swift were say really out, that Gainwell would just take his role. I think they might. Boston Scott is annoying. Maybe Penny comes and gets involved. But I could see the Eagles being the team was like, yeah, this is why we kind of kept Penny under wraps all year. Because we wanted either Swift or Penny, and if we played them both at the same time, we figured we'd have neither come playoff time. I could see Penny, being maybe the fantasy playoffs, maybe in the real playoffs. I think Gainwell and Scott are just guys. So I'm lower on Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, we had talked about Dearness Johnson already. You never really answered. Where would you rank Dearness Johnson right now, especially since they're presumably going to run the ball more?
I gave Mitchell a 6.5. I give Dearness Johnson like a 5.5.
Okay.
And I would give who was the guy before that I liked Antonio Gibson like an 8.5 in terms of like if you're saying 0 to 10 for available running backs.
Bad running back year this year. I mean, if you didn't have McCaffrey or maybe Mostert, it's been very uneven. Joe Mixon, just to give you perspective here, is running back 7 on the year, and I don't think anybody loves Joe Mixon. Chase Brown I think he had just about 10 carries or touches last week, maybe a little less. Looked okay. Is he a priority handcuff? He's available everywhere that I'm playing fantasy football, other than deep dynasty leagues.
I mean, I don't know about Jake Browning, whether that was something that he can really sustain, but yeah, I would say he's like a 7,
Chase Brown.
No, Jake Browning, the quarterback.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Chase Brown, the running back.
I know. I'm saying that matters for the running back.
Got it.
Because
don't get annoyed. Don't get annoyed.
No, you're correcting me, but I wasn't making a mistake.
I was confirming, not correcting. Don't get annoyed. I still love.
No, I was. Yeah, I know. I didn't take it personally. I was just saying no.
Well,
I'm
I
saying
took it
Jake
personally.
Browning. Oh, I'm sorry, Alan.
Okay,
but I'm saying Jake Browning, is the variable there, right? Which changes the value of that running back, because if it's a totally dead offense, the running back's not that valuable. But if Jake Browning did what he did against the Jaguars, who have a decent defense. Then, all of a sudden that Mixon, Chase Brown, whoever it is, that's kind of valuable again, and so that's sort of the variable that we don't really know. We just saw one good game.
All right. Seattle, Ken Walker's probably not going to play again. Zach Charbonnet is banged up a little bit. DJ Dallas against San Francisco. Right, no, who are they playing this week? Let's see.
San Francisco.
San Francisco. I mean, even if he's the starting running back, my first thought was I wouldn't start him. I'd take Zeke over him, all these other guys. What's your feelings on DJ Dallas?
He's tough against the Niners. He can catch passes. I think they would probably work. So I don't even know who the guy behind him is, but they would work someone else in with him. So I'm not bullish on that. Kenny Walker's not playing this week. Is that already set?
I think it said that it was. I mean, we'll find out for sure. But here's the latest note on Walker, which it looked like because I have him in a lot of leagues. It says oblique. Oh yeah, let's see. This is from December 6th. He's missed the last two missed the last two games. We'll keep. Yeah, it's basically undecided this week. But I would think it's leaning no.
Yeah, I got this weird. Oh, it's Heather. I gotta. Sorry, I gotta decline that call. No, I mean she's
doesn't she know you podcast on this hour? I mean, it might be an emergency.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's an emergency, but I'll call her back. She's been
right now traveling. On the air.
No, I'm not gonna call her back on the air. So one time though on the video, I don't know if you ever saw this video. We did some videos like way back in like 2014. We're doing these Google Hangout videos, and a guy, God, what's his name? Dan Gottlieb. I can't remember his name, but he used to do the videos with us. And I was just kind of making a big joke of the whole video. And I had a call from like my car mechanic or like body shop. And I was like in the middle of it. And I was like saying all the stuff. And I was like, I need to take this. So I'm like on the phone during it. And he's like, okay. It was hilarious though. It was just like a total comedy thing. But I just took the call by a mechanic. I mean, you can't miss that. You know, you're like, when do I pick up my car?
No, yeah, totally. And there was no text or email. Like actually, 2014, there might have been a little bit. By the way, Kenny McIntosh is the 4th running back listed on the Seahawks depth chart. He was a rookie that was drafted this year. I don't know if they brought in any veterans or if that depth chart's updated. Obviously, the number one cuff. I mean, at this point, you don't need this podcast to tell you Zach Moss, despite a down week, is still, he could be ranked as a top 10 running back, maybe even higher.
Well, yeah, he's starting, so he's not really a cuff, right? I mean,
right.
He's the starter. I mean, I think Rico Dowdle is the best cuff.
Right.
But yeah, Moss is beyond that, right? He's graduated. And yeah, Indy's like an interesting team. Like they actually, like Minshew is actually pretty good. I think Minshew is like the 15th best quarterback in the NFL or something like that.
At least the top 20th, right? You take him over Kenny Pickett. I mean, that's easy. Zach Wilson, not even easy, Yeah,
that's not even but QB1 off the field, you got to consider.
Yeah.
QB1 didn't want to come back. It was too cozy. Like his real calling was going so well. And like, I got to get back into this BS. And he tried to decline it.
So our friend Anthony in the chat, actually, he must be looking at my show notes here, because I was going to say is now one of the better handcuffs if you like Indy. Is it Trey Sermon, who's now the backup to Moss?
Yeah, I thought about that, but like, and Moss has been hurt a lot, but it's like, is Sermon even like remotely good at football? Like,
does it matter? Does it matter?
Yeah, it matters. Like that's the thing. I think that I mean, it matters less for running backs than say wide receivers, right? If the wide receiver gets hurt, you're like, oh, don't worry, Mark Andrews got hurt. I'll just pick up Isaiah Likely. It's fine. It matters, right? Like at those positions, running back matters a little less, but it still matters. I mean, think about Dalvin Cook is gone, and people are like, okay, Alexander Madison, I'll just take him. He's Dalvin Cook. But he's not Dalvin Cook, right? And he's not even close to as good. And actually, Dalvin Cook is an interesting one. If Breece Hall got hurt, Dalvin may be washed up, but he's just been in such a sporadic role this year that, you never really know. He might just need to have gotten more touches. So that's kind of a one that's probably available, Dalvin Cook.
Yep. Yeah, well, they also said he was going to get more touches last week. He did. But the Jets offense is just so bad.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
Yeah. It gets me upset as a Jets fan that like they don't have a Jake Browning. Like, Tim Boyle, everyone knew Tim Boyle.
What's the point of Tim Boyle?
Right. And then, Trevor Siemian, he's probably like the lowest rung of NFL worthy like rostership. So
he's not even the same species, I mean, it's crazy. It's
it always kills me. Never gets old, Chris Liss.
It'll get old, just not in any of our lifetimes.
Exactly. Foreman's back and healthy. Deontay Foreman on the Chicago Bears. Right now, that's a 3-way committee, but 2 running backs can go down in a game. And if you have a week 16 starter, week 15 starter in Foreman, I would rank him pretty high in our handcuff running backs.
Oh, near the top. Foreman is good. Like Foreman to me is like a top 15, like early down running back in the NFL. Like he's just a good running back. He's not a pass catcher, but he's a bruiser. He's sort of like, what Derrick Henry is now. He's not like peak Derrick Henry, but he's like a big bruiser. I mean, he's better than like AJ Dillon or somebody. He's good.
He's a professional running back.
Yeah, he's good. And And I don't know who I don't know who's the head of the committee there. I don't know what the Bears are going to do.
Yeah, no, it could be. But it's a little murky. You also have Justin Fields who's going to run a little bit, but those are any Bears running back, but specifically Foreman, I do want on my roster because that could clear out for you in week 17. And then you have a 20-touch starter. We've seen Foreman win weeks. I mean, the upside is just off the charts there. I'll be interested to see where he goes next year. How about Michael Carter, who was cut by the Jets? He's been getting a little bit more work than I thought he would over in Arizona. They're on bye this week, so it's possible that Carter was dropped. If James Conner, who's been dinged up, goes down and you're desperate in a playoff, would you prioritize Carter in PPR leagues as a handcuff?
Yeah, he would catch a bunch of passes. Conner looks great, by the way, but yeah, if he got hurt, Carter, I think showed a spark with the Jets. Like they just didn't need him after they paid, for Dalvin Cook and they had Breece Hall, but he's not a stiff in my mind. So yeah, I think he's probably worth a look.
All right, here's a controversial one. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All right, we know Pacheco.
I'm done. He's dead to me. I picked that dude up, started him all the wrong weeks. That dude sucks.
So even if he had a clarified start in a game, you wouldn't put him in?
If he had a clarified start, I'd probably use him. But then you'd probably see McKinnon get work or I don't know. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I've tried so many times. I drafted him every league. I was like, look, Pacheco is just a guy and he's a late round pick and McKinnon's 33. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is perfect for him. But he scored a touchdown once early in the year, but he's just so, I don't know what it is. Maybe they just like Pacheco so much that, that's just what it is now.
Jerick McKinnon over the last couple weeks, Chris Liss, he's played, he has no fantasy. Well, he didn't even play in week 12 and 13. He's getting nothing. Maybe, traditionally they've saved McKinnon for December. So you could easily see let's use him. Jerick McKinnon, he's probably on your waiver wire. Is he a worthy handcuff for the fantasy playoffs?
No, because if Pacheco went down, you wouldn't know whether you could use him. It would be so, nothing's guaranteed, but you want that Tony Pollard goes down and Rico Dowdle is considered a top 12 running back that week, on everybody's cheat sheet. You don't want, Pacheco goes down, you have McKinnon, and he's running back 27. That's what you don't want, because then you're I got the event that I needed to spring his value, but I still don't feel confident starting him. I think those are the guys you don't want to handcuff. You want the guy that you're sure that is going to be the guy.
Fair enough. Here, how's the picture been better or kind of the same?
Your picture's fine. It's the sound is a little stuttery.
All right. Anyone in the chat, just let me know if you're hearing my sound okay, because I think I was here when I tested it was all right.
Okay.
If not, we're gonna have to get Chris Liss a new pair of headphones. That's all.
My headphones are beat up because I keep taking them all over traveling and they're all ripped up. I don't think it's the headphones.
All right. Alan, you're good. All right. Oh, thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. Oh man, this guy in everyone hates this guy in my league because he's too good. He hasn't lost a game all year in my dynasty league. That tell him that's a bad omen going into the fantasy playoffs, that he wants to lose at least one. He's undefeated.
No, it's good. You want to get destroyed last regular season game and then go in and crush.
He wants to be
in real life. I believe in that. In real life, I believe in that. You need to get crushed. In your week 16, but it doesn't really affect your seeding. But in fantasy, there's nothing, there's no psychological thing going on.
Look at this, 3 for 3 on my picture and sound are good list.
Okay, it's crackly in my ear, but it's not interrupting me hearing you, so it's okay.
All right. Well, you know me, I'm an audiophile. So
yes, you are.
Yeah. I thought you were going to go somewhere with that. All right. Keaton Mitchell, handcuff that you want to roster. In the ball, because right now people are dropping.
You can play him.
Yeah, you can play him straight up.
Yeah, those are the best. A handcuff that you can just play, A-Chain is a handcuff, but you play him. Is that's not even a question, right? Because that's a starter. It's the Dowdles. Dowdle almost was at that level for a while, but I consider my handcuff.
All right, I'm going down my list here. You can't really use, under that same principle, you can't use any of the Detroit running backs. Tajay Spears, popular pickup this week, but Derrick Henry's probably going to play another Iron Man, right? How high would you prioritize Spears on the handcuff list moving into the fantasy playoffs?
Pretty high. I mean, he's the clear backup. He's got some skills. Shit, I got to take that. She's calling me twice. Hold on.
Yeah, no
hold
problem.
On. Hold on.
No problem. We're talking about handcuffs in the fantasy football playoffs, and I think there's two parts of this conversation. Was we talked about in the beginning where you want to basically cut all your low upside depth, load your roster up with backup running backs. The other thing, and I'm going to ask Liss about this when he gets back, is if you're in super flex leagues, and most people, not most, it's still mostly single quarterback leagues, but if you play in these 2 quarterback super flex leagues, I think you also want to backload your roster with backup quarterbacks now, right? Like, so if you have Josh Allen, maybe you put Kyle Allen on there and you cut like a low upside depth guy. Or if you have Russell Wilson as your QB2, you can't go into a playoff matchup and not have Jared Stidham, who Denver was pretty aggressive about signing, and have him as your backup. So I also think in Superflex leagues, we need to start thinking about the backup quarterbacks the same way we think about the backup running backs. And if you have 3 starting quarterbacks, like if you have in one super, I'll tell you. So Liss, what I was talking about also is that for people that play Superflex leagues, that it's also, you want to have the backup quarterbacks on your roster. So if you have Russell Wilson in a Superflex league, I'm okay rostering Jared Stidham, because you don't want to be in a playoff matchup. And in Superflex leagues, there's nobody to pick up. You're picking up CJ Beathard from week to week.
Yeah, that's a great point. In a Superflex, it's just like a running back. It's even more important. And I wonder if in the playoffs, because especially if your roster's lock, right? Like the NFFC. I mean, they don't really have Superflex.
But like, they don't. Right? You're saying because you don't want your opponent to block you.
Well, that's true. You don't want the guy, if there's 4 guys left in the playoffs after round 1 and Stidham's the guy available because Russ got hurt and everybody else is pretty much locked up, he probably would put a bid in for Stidham to block
definitely,
him, right?
I would. I mean, to block you, so you have to start like Rondell Moore in your Superflex or something like that.
That's how it gets ugly when you start it's one thing to start a good receiver in your Superflex.
Right.
It's quite another to start a bad one.
Yeah,
I've done it before though.
Yeah, and I think like in Superflex leagues, the quarterback takes a place of the running back. Like in a lot of the dynasty leagues I play in the past, you would like give like your next year's rookie third for a spot start running back, like a Boston Scott type, or when Ty Chandler plays, if you need a spot. Now I'm seeing that more and more with the quarterbacks. Like someone gave me a 4th round pick for Mitch Trubisky, right? Which probably is I sold it too cheap, but they were
no, you just sold right. You don't want to start Mitch Trubisky even a quarter. I mean,
no, but I had him as a bench guy. I had him as a bench. Dude,
no, so. I know, but I'm saying like, that's like Tim Boyle, Mr. Trubisky. It's like, you don't even want to use, like, that's like where it gets so ugly that you're like, do I even use Zach Wilson or Mitch Trubisky instead of, say like Keaton Mitchell? It's like a hard call.
Yeah, but
like
you said it all the time, man. Even QB 30 and Mitch Trubisky, like his floor is going to be 13 points, right? 12 points. I mean, Keaton Mitchell, yes, the upside is way more, but the likelihood is Keaton Mitchell's going to have 6 points. So maybe it is worth the risk. I don't know. I mean, but how many matchups do you lose by like a point or less? Everything counts.
No, I think, Trubisky could get 3 touchdowns. You never know. But some of these guys, Trubisky may not. He's got a little experience, so maybe. But some of these guys like Tim Boyle, like I almost feel like there's just no
Bryce
upside.
Young, not startable in Superflex.
It's like very hard to start those guys, right? Even if you have anybody. So
yeah. All right. The couple other Josh Dobbs, he's going to get the start again. Justin Jefferson's going to be back. Josh Dobbs was like this year's superhero. Then everybody turned on him after one bad game. I'm glad the Vikings are giving him another opportunity with Justin Jefferson. What's your expectations? I mean, obviously, if you have Jefferson, you're starting him. But I had some questions this week about Josh Dobbs and they were kind of 50-50-ish. Like they were Baker Mayfield or Josh Dobbs, Matthew Stafford, Jameis Winston or Josh Dobbs. What's your feeling on Dobbs heading into the week?
Aren't they playing the Raiders this week?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm double checking.
I would think that's like a good matchup for Dobbs, and I would start. He runs, gets Jefferson back. I would actually be pretty confident that he's going to get at least like 15, 20 points.
Yeah, and there's upside. How about Gardner Minshew or Dobbs? Because you said you like Gardner Minshew earlier.
I think that was exactly what I was thinking of when you said Josh Dobbs, or that would be like a coin flip. And who are they playing?
Who Minshew?
The Bengals, right?
Yeah, at Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Bengals defense isn't bad. I think that's 50-50. I think that's a real coin flip.
Yep. Oh, this is going back to our Keaton Mitchell discussion. You mentioned A-Chain before as like kind of like a not really a handcuff, like a player like Keaton Mitchell where you put him in your lineup. You know, the keeper market, the dynasty market has Achan as like a top 5, top 8 running back in dynasty and keeper. I mean, it sounds crazy because he gets so low volume of touches, but I could see why, right? I mean, you're going to take him or, you know,
Zay Flowers in a keeper league. Which one would you take?
Very good. Hey, look, I wasn't wrong. I just said what I would do, and wide receivers tend to have more sustained value.
Listen,
yes,
it's if you're an adult and you blame someone else for your choice that you made voluntarily, you're a total nutless monkey. But if I have someone to blame, I'm going to do it. You know, man, I told you that Stopa wrote in the thing. He said he would have to be an outlier. And I just wrote a thing about outliers.
That's
about
the crazy part.
And Justin Tucker. And the other premonition I had was Chris Bassett, the Hound, when the Bassett Hound came around. And Chris Bassett had 16 wins and like 180 strikeouts and decent ratios. And, you know, if I have a premonition, it's real. You know, I'm basically, you know, I'm a psychic, but I can't, it's not for everything. It's just once in a while, one of them comes to me and I got to heed it. And I should have stuck to it. But like a nutless monkey, I drafted Zay Flowers, who, you know, even with Mark Andrews out, can't seem to just take control and get, you know, 10 targets. So that passing game is really bad to be part of. Nobody gets 10 targets. Like nobody ever gets to 10, you know, like even Mark Andrews once in a while, but like basically nobody gets to 10. You just, how do you draft receivers in a passing game where, you know, 6 or 7 targets is the best you're ever going to do?
Yeah, and of course, you're talking about that choice of Achan versus Flowers was in a rookie dynasty league, just to give people context. Where you know you're keeping them for the rest of your life. I want to talk as we're talking about handcuffs here for the fantasy playoffs. Los Angeles Rams, Kyren Williams, obviously he's the starter. I mean, top 5 running back. 2-part question here, and we're gonna we'll start with what the topic we're talking about is. Freeman. How much would, let's say that Williams misses another game, is Royce Freeman a priority handcuff that you want to have on your roster versus like say like a KJ Osborne or a Greg Dortch type?
Yeah, I would say so. I just dropped Freeman in some leagues because I was so annoyed that I started him and he did nothing
0
last week.
He got a 0. Yeah.
And but you know, as the backup, that's, you know, I mean, I guess the Rams were so ahead of the game before that Freeman got a lot of run, and Kyren Williams already had a huge game. But now now you know, okay, well, Freeman's not guaranteed anything. He needs the injury to be relevant. But yeah, we're talking about backups that you wouldn't start, but that, you know, if someone got hurt, yeah, I think he'd be, you know, like a 7 out of 10 in that scale that we did.
So the other part of this question is a lot of things change in the offseason. But let's say the Rams look basically the same, you know, a few pieces here and there. Maybe they even draft like a day 2 or day 3 running back. Kyren Williams. What round will you draft him? Is he a 2nd round player? Is he a 1st round player?
Like, 3, 4.
Yeah, I don't think he'll get him though. I mean, we were talking about this the other day.
I'm not trying to get him. You know, I mean, I'm trying to get someone who maybe I'll do some research and change my mind on it. But like,
I mean, he's been a literal league winner. I know we use that term as like cliche, kind of funny, but I'm telling you, man, that people hated him because, well, first of all, he was considered the 3rd best running back in his class. Falls to the 5th round in the real NFL draft because he tested poorly. And, you know, it's like he was good in college, pass catching running back. Now, what more does he have to do? I mean, if he was a 1st round NFL draft pedigreed running back, you wouldn't be saying this about him. Are you letting like draft pedigree pull you? Why aren't you like bullish on Kyren after everything he's done this year?
I mean, he's been really good, but it's been a couple of games, right? He was hurt for like 3 or 4 games in the middle of the season. So it's not like he's done this all year. You can't take his average output and extrapolate as though he played 12 games so far, right? How many games he had? 8 or something like that?
Yeah, he's got 6 games with 17 fantasy points or more.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. But again, you know, missing those games does matter. And
right, you don't want to,
because of his pedigree, I don't know, is
5'9", 190 pounds.
He's small. He doesn't look that fast when he plays. He's quick, you know, but I think that long speed is, you know, he's not going to break like the home run as much. And then you wonder, like, is McVay going to be as committed to him because they got him so cheaply? You know, there is the Arian Foster, the Terrell Davis, you know, those kind of guys that, you know, were elite for 4 or 5 years without pedigree because they were just so obviously good that they just were top backs in the league. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see Kyren Williams yet as like that Arian Foster, like where oh, this is one of the top 5 backs in the league yet. I just see him as a guy who's done really well in the system that has been good for him. But
right. And you're right there, because if Sean McVay's not back, I'm even worried about like Puka Nacua for next year if there's no McVay or no.
I mean, I said third round. I mean, who's going to the third round? I mean, like Ramondre types, and I mean, he obviously got hurt. And
running backs are going to fall next year. A lot of running, but like you might be able to get, Jahmyr Gibbs might be a third round pick again next year.
Yeah, I mean, third round is still expensive. I'm not saying like I wouldn't take him. I'm just saying first 2 rounds.
You said fourth round.
I said third, fourth. I said
yes.
But this year has annoyed me, not only because I'm not having a good year, but also because it feels so random. Like the guys that are doing well, like on one league I had that's drawing dead. I had DK Metcalf, Christian Watson, and Devin Achane this week, right? So I had a monster score, but it's like too little, too late. Like fuck off. You're going to score these touchdowns now, and week 13 when I'm out of it. Like it's just stupid. Like what am I doing? Like, oh yeah, see, those guys can score touchdowns that I drafted, but it doesn't really matter because I'm out of the playoffs. It's sort of like, or HN was hurt for much too long. It's just, what the hell's going on? Like I just want some reliability, and you're like, oh, the quarterbacks at least are good, like the Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Mahomes has been terrible, but I got
terrible.
Dak, and
he's been disappointing. He has been terrible.
For where you got him, he's been terrible.
Right.
Sure. But so I got Purdy and Dak in that league. That I feel like waiting on quarterbacks was the right thing. I had Anthony Richardson, and then he got hurt, and Cousins. Those guys were doing just as well. And I got picked up CJ Stroud in the league that I had Russ and Aaron Rodgers as my QB. He's like, the QB is not the problem. It's you can find a QB. And if you have Minshew here and there. Last year I got destroyed by crappy QBs. This year the late QBs worked out fine. It's just I just don't have any Mostert. I don't have any Rashad White. I just don't have some of these guys that you just gotta have. I don't have Pacheco, McCaffrey. I don't have any of these guys. I don't have any Tyreek Hill. I mean, fantasy football. I mean, some years it's just like you got to draft a good. Like last year, I did well. I had like AJ Brown, Ramondre, Barkley. My team won. The problem because it was just like I didn't hit any real out of the park. It was all just like good, solid, good pick. And then together I had Trevor Lawrence. It was just like a good team and it was good enough. But this year it's like, there's like 6 guys, and if you have them, there's some years like this, that year that Lamar Jackson and McCaffrey and Michael Thomas went crazy. It's like, you needed those guys. If you have those guys, forget it. And this is just one of those years. There were just certain key guys that you had to have. And it was just sort of like, all right, well, I just didn't see those guys coming. And so I just feel like, okay, great. Now Metcalf is showing that, he could score some touchdowns, like big deal.
Yeah. It's, I know you, one of my favorite articles that you write all year is the team I should have drafted. And then you kind of make tongue in cheek where, I would have taken Puka Nacua in round 1 and all these,
right.
Wherever. When is that coming out, by the way?
End of the year, usually like week 16 or 17. And this year's going to be the best. It's going to be the easiest. Sometimes it's hard because you don't want to take a chalk pick in any round. And so the whole premise is I'm going to make absurd picks and I'm going to win. I'll take a defense in the first round, that like is by far the best defense. And people will be like, oh, I'll side bet you. And I'm like, okay, how much you want to do it for? Let's double it. And every round I'm taking a crazy pick because I know I'm getting like Mostert instead of round 11, where everyone I'll get him in round 9. Right. And then I'll take, A-Chain around 8. And I'll take, and I'll take all these guys that I know I'm going to get. Nacua in round 15, I'll be taking these guys. And so I can take defenses and kickers, the best kicker in defense, like the Dallas kicker in defense, rounds 1 and 2, and get the side bets and destroy everybody. And some years it's hard because if you take a kicker in defense in rounds 1 and 2, you're like, damn, I need a tight end. Well, who am I going to get? But this year it's so easy. I mean, you could take Matt Laporta. Laporta. Yeah, you could take, what's his name? Kincaid late. I mean, there's just a million guys to take. CJ Stroud you can get in the last round. So, and
I like when you pair up the guy who did good in the first half with the guy in the second half. You put them together. But you could literally not have drafted players in the first 2 rounds this year, and other than McCaffrey, and put together like an all-star team.
Yeah, think about how many busts there were. It's really amazing. The third round, like the Najees and the Ramondres, and that whole round was just bust after bust.
If your name ends in A, it's bad, right?
Yeah, it's really, yeah. Anyway.
Are you ready to take a loser lap, not a victory lap, loser lap on Amon-Ra St. Brown? He'll be a first-round pick again next year. Are you there yet?
I'll take the L. Well, I said early second. He should have been a first. I'll say that's right. I mean, look, I said Jarvis Landry, peak Jarvis Landry, who had 112 catches, but Landry only had do you have 4 touchdowns? So Amon-Ra is going to end up with 8 touchdowns despite missing a game or 2. So that he actually got in the end zone this year.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has got 6 so far.
Yeah, so probably get 8, and that's despite missing a game, I think. And so,
and that's what you and I talked about, though. We talked about that would be the difference. Like you said, if he's in the 4 touchdown range, you'll be right. If he's in the 6 to 8 touchdown round,
well, if he's finished with 6, but I think he'll get 8. He's got 6 now. He may get 9. I mean, there's plenty of time, but the thing about Amon-Ra that's so good is he's either had close to 100 yards or a touchdown every week. So he's never had a dud. There's not been one week, because I have in the stake league, where you started him and you were and you're unhappy with what you got. You just get something every week from him. So yeah, I'll take the L, but it's not like I was saying he was bad. I was saying he was Jarvis Landry, who was a rock solid 2nd round pick, at his peak. It's just, and I won't take the L really totally, because he really hasn't had he hasn't lit it up. Right. It's not like
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, he's not Tyreek Hill. He's not making these big plays. So, yeah,
he hasn't even been Keenan Allen, right? He hasn't
I take we're talking about, instead of taking him 9th where he was going, so he's crept up to 8th in some league, 6th, 7th. I was saying take him 15, 16.
That's a big deal, though.
Given the busts in the first round, he was definitely taking him 6 or 7 was great, right? Given that you could have got Eckler, or you could have ended up with who else is going around there? You're
talking about what in the middle
Bijan, Eckler. You'd way rather have Amon-Ra. So, so it was a good pick where they
Garrett Wilson was going. Garrett
Wilson. Yeah. I mean, so I'll take the L. I'll take a small L, but I don't think I was so off base, there.
I mean, right.
I took CeeDee Lamb in my prime time, and I'd rather have him too.
Absolutely. All right. 2 popular topics in fantasy football this year is how we're going to close. Mike Evans Hall of Fame debate. I'm so curious of your, to me, I was thinking Mike Evans Hall of Fame 3 years ago. Now that he's had his 10th straight 1,000-yard season, there's actual debate. There's discourse on this. Where do you, first ballot Hall of Famer, or are you I'm not so sure?
I mean, the Hall of Fame as it exists, the way it works, yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame, no problem. I mean, the idea that does he belong in an inner circle?
That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about the actual NFL Hall of Fame. Yeah. Well, of course. Why wouldn't he be? He won a Super Bowl.
People say that
Super Bowl.
I agree with you. They're saying that Torrey Holt is still waiting, and there's some other, and they're calling him an accumulator. And I say the same argument that I said with Zeke. You can only be an accumulator, especially a wide receiver, if you stay healthy, right? I mean,
but Evans is also per play, he makes big plays. It's not like he's just sitting around catching, 6-yard passes. He's not Julian Edelman. I know Ted Bell will get real pissed about that, because Julian Edelman probably should get in just from his playoff numbers are sick. But this guy's making big time game changing catches, and he's done it for 10 years with, mostly crap quarterbacks. Mostly he had Brady 1 year, 2 years. So yeah, I think that's pretty obvious that he's in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that. Tyreek Hill, MVP. MVP is a quarterback award. A couple, maybe 5 weeks ago, I told you I put a little scratch down on Dak at 35-1. He's now the favorite.
I know, crazy.
Yep. So a small bet though, small bet. I was a nutless monkey on that one. I did not go heavy on it. But could this be the year that a non-quarterback wins it? I mean, if any, Tyreek's certainly worthy of it. I know you've called him a top 3 wide receiver of all time.
Yeah, he should win it. I mean, you could give it to Trent Williams, you could give it to Tyreek Hill, you could give it to McCaffrey, you could give it to Purdy, you could give it to Dak, you could give it to Dak's played really great lately. Yeah. You could give it to the
winner of the
Hurts, maybe, AJ Brown is falling off lately, but he was until 2 games ago in the conversation. I mean, you're just kind of making it up, right? I mean, we don't know for sure I think Tyreek has a good case, especially if he breaks the receiving record. And I think Trent Williams has a good case.
He's not.
The Niners lost 3 games in a row when he was out and Debo was out, and they're the best team in the league right now, and so
they're not going to give it to a lineman. There's no way.
I mean, they should
right,
give it.
They're
to
not.
What,
it's like,
here's what's ridiculous, right? The NFL pays offensive tackles, elite ones, more than anybody except quarterbacks, right? So don't you think the market knows better than idiots on Twitter arguing? I mean, do you think the market is like, well, if they're going to pay, they pay the quarterbacks the most, but then if there's no quarterback that stands out from each other, what about the most outstanding by far left tackle on the best offense in the league with a very mediocre quarterback, or we don't know he's mediocre, but a guy who was, the last pick in the draft who isn't like a special athlete or anything. What, if they're paying these left tackles that much, why not value them in the MVP discussion accordingly?
It seems to be a quarterback award. I agree with you. It's got to be the most outstanding player. Then they have like offensive player in the year, which is kind of like nobody really cares about that, right? I mean, the year Cooper Kupp.
But why? But if you're willing to entertain Tyreek Hill, why not Trent Williams?
It's a great question. You've actually made a persuasive case, especially based on the salary that they garner. So, that's why running back probably could never be an MVP. And you say McCaffrey. My premise on the running back is that salary thing doesn't work very well, and neither does the spread thing, because running back is an instinctive position where it's not hard for somebody to get in there pretty quickly and get to a decent level if they have any skill. I mean, some running backs aren't, the Trent Richardsons just turned out like they're not very good, but it's easy to get up to speed quickly with a new running back. A new quarterback takes a long time to get up to speed, which is why. And you don't know if he's good enough to get up to speed. If he's even an adequate guy, it takes a long time to find out. So that's why the line moves 7 points, say if Patrick Mahomes is out for a game, because the backup can't get to the point where he's Gardner Minshew right away. They don't know that he can be Gardner Minshew. But if you had Gardner Minshew, whoever the replacement guy is, then the difference is only like 3 or 4 points, right? The most of the difference when the quarterback's out in the spread is not because it's Mahomes or whoever the Josh Allen. It's because the backup isn't Minshew. It's QB1 or Simeon. That's Jake Browning before this big game.
Before the big game, right? Yeah. And then once the quarterback gets up to speed, then that really narrows the gap a lot. And I think that the reason the quarterbacks get paid so much isn't because Gardner Minshew isn't just as good as Daniel Jones. It's because you don't know in advance, and it takes time to find out whether you have Gardner Minshew or you have Trevor Simeon as the guy. You don't know which is which until, and it ruins the whole season to find out. And so once you know that the guys, or you think, that the guy's a certain level, then he gets paid because the cost of switching and finding out is so high. And so I think people say, running backs don't matter because the cost of switching is low. But when you actually have a McCaffrey, who I think should absolutely be in the MVP discussion, it's so obvious that it makes a massive difference to that offense. That like McCaffrey is not like some incidental piece they added. The Niners were like sort of languishing last year. And ever since McCaffrey joined, this is like an absolute Super Bowl caliber team. And that was, the big ad between, last year and this year. And so the running backs don't matter crowd are a bunch of midwit idiots who have let the spreadsheets get to their head. The elite running backs really matter. Just like quarterbacks, there's the elite matter a ton. The guys in the middle, just matter that they're not scrubs. And the scrubs really matter because they kill you. But I think the big issue with quarterbacks is the cost of finding out and switching midstream in a system is so high that that the lock-in is so important. And so it's not like, because every time, they draft a Zach Wilson, they draft a Sam Darnold, all these things, people are just, they draft a Bryce Young and you're like, wait, you paid up for that. Right. And they're like, well, quarterback's the only thing that matter. But when you have the elites, it really matters. Every position matters. Every single position matters. Yeah. Even like, and obviously this is the lesser position, but a kicker that is going to make 55 yarders like their extra points. I mean, like if I'm going to the playoffs with my team and, the replacement level kicker now is better than it's ever been. I mean, these randos are kicking 55 yarders. It's amazing. But when you're like, I don't know if my guy can make a 45 yarder in, the rain, like that's like catastrophic to go into a playoff game with that situation. And so I just think that, everything is that barbell thing where the bottom 20% absolutely wreck you, the top 20% absolutely carry you, and especially as you get to the top 5 and the bottom 5, and that vast middle doesn't really matter, even if it's quarterback. Is Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, who cares? All these guys, they're all the same, basically.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a good place to pause it there. If you like videos like this, consider hitting the like and the subscribe button. And also, I want to alert everyone, if you love Chris Liss's content, go check out everything he has right now. Go over to realmansports.com, realmansports.com, and also check out the Chris Liss podcast. What are you going to be talking about this week on the Chris Liss podcast?
I just did it. I released it. First is I don't get to do here so much, but there was like a tragic thing happened in Heather's family that she's dealing with now. And so that was just one thing I had to talk about because it's a huge thing in our lives. And then just talking about the, I don't really care. I'm not like for a political party, but like there's this like new message that you have to be terrified at the prospect of Donald Trump becoming president. And I don't understand it because he was already president and nothing happened.
Right.
So that was one thing. And
so you're going to talk about that on the Chris Liss
And then,
podcast.
of course, I talked about Bitcoin also, which has been on a big run lately, and like why, and some of the thoughts on what it means.
All right. Good stuff right there. Also, are you I know you're an old school Howard Stern fan. You don't listen anymore. Did you hear the Howard Stern news that happened this week?
I did not. What happened?
Yeah. Do you remember the character Ralph Sorella, his stylist? He's been on the show a million times.
I don't remember specifically.
So anyway, young guy, he passed away. I was just curious if you had heard that, because I was dying to ask you, because I know that you used to listen to Stern. So
I listened to him like in the 90s, maybe 80s, maybe, or whenever.
Oh,
like
80s.
in New York.
Yeah, no, Ralph wasn't around in the 80s. I was just curious.
It was a long time ago. And then I listened to. I saw a couple of his Sirius XM ones in the studio, some of the video, like the YouTube stuff, but. No, no offense. I don't want to get you guys in trouble, so I won't say this on the RotoWire, what I think of Howard Stern now. Yeah.
Well, you can. We'll yeah, exactly. By the way, all right. So also, if you want to check out RotoWire, get behind our paywall, rotowire.com/pod, rotowire.com/pod. Put in your email. Paywall unlocks. Fantasy baseball rankings are already up. Fantasy basketball rest of season premium content. Fantasy football playoff advice. Go check it out for free. It's you're gonna love it over there. And the dynasty rankings are updated. Optimizers for DFS. All our great tools. So follow Chris Liss on Noster. Follow myself on X. I'm still over there. Chris Liss only comes over on Tuesdays. I don't
see you next Tuesday.
Very good. Very good. Anything else to add before we sign off, Chris?
No, man. I'm good. I'm good.
All right, buddy. We'll see you next week and with another fantasy football podcast. We'll figure out exactly what we're going to talk about, but there's no shortage of topics. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Thursday at